This row between the New South Wales and the federal Labor government around this gold mine has escalated today. You had the Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, ramping up his rhetoric against the Commonwealth's last-minute order to kill off this gold mine. Minns didn't hold back in budget estimates earlier today. Have a listen to him.
I'm disappointed by the decision from the Commonwealth Government.
Do you disagree with the reversal?
Absolutely, I've said that many times.
And in your view, Tanya Plibersek, using that power, she was in error?
Yes.
That's Chris Minns today. Now, the Prime Minister is insisting that the project can still go ahead, though Regis Resources does not sound as confident. Let's bring in New South Wales Minerals Council Chief Executive Stephen Galilee. Stephen, good to see you again. Defending this decision, Minister Plibersek and even the Prime Minister say, look, this can go ahead, just move the tailings dam. But surely the company, Stephen, looked at all those alternative sites, didn't they?
This is political damage control from the Prime Minister and the Minister involved. This decision is a dagger at the heart of the project. The Minister knew exactly what she was doing when she made her decision. She knew that the tailings dam was integral to the mine design, the viability of the project. She was told that by the company formally, and as was her department on many occasions. She knew exactly what the implications were of her decision. And this is the kind of political damage control and rhetoric you get from people that have never had a real job outside of Parliament. They've been in Parliament too long. They think that if you put it in a press release, it happens. Mine design is not some kind of cut and paste exercise. To move that tailings dam means an entire redesign of the mine itself. It means geotechnical, geological, engineering, biodiversity, environmental, cultural heritage and other studies need to be redone. It means a new application needs to be prepared and assessed. And at the end of all that, after several years, 4 or 5 years or so, potentially you've got another spurious veto decision from the Minister again. So these comments from the Prime Minister and from Minister Plibersek are a breathtaking misunderstanding of how the planning system works in New South Wales and just how out of touch they are in relation to how things happen in the real world.
So explain, if you can, Stephen, this Section 10 legislation for us. What sort of power does that bestow on the Minister, and what sort of sovereign risk might that pose to Australian mining projects right around the country?
Well, it effectively bestows a right of veto on the Minister in relation to a claimed cultural heritage status of particular sites in relation to these sorts of projects. And it's not just mining projects. We've seen these sorts of claims made in relation to gas projects, in relation to other mining projects, and I'm sure that that'd be applicable to renewable energy and other projects in regional New South Wales as well. They give the Minister discretion to block projects on the basis, in this case, of information she says is so culturally sensitive that she can't repeat it. So how's the proponent supposed to know that? It creates massive sovereign risk issues for any major investment in regional Australia. This is a New South Wales example, but this is a risk for regional projects right across the country, and it's a weaponised piece of legislation that we've seen used by the Environmental Defender's Office and others to try and block resources projects, and this is what happens when a weaponised project is given some kind of weight by the Minister. So she's swung a wrecking ball at this project. The project is now back to the drawing board, and for her and the Prime Minister to suggest they can simply tweak the application and everything is going to be okay is, as I said, a breathtaking misunderstanding of how these major projects are assessed through state planning systems.
And we're not talking here, are we, about a threat to native animals or some major environmental impact on the region that's going to destroy a river or create damage. We're actually talking about an Indigenous complaint from an individual that was not agreed by the actual Indigenous landholders of that area, and we don't even know exactly what the complaint is.
These cultural heritage claims were rigorously assessed through the New South Wales government's own processes. The local Aboriginal Land Council said there were no sites or artefacts of cultural significance that would prevent this project from proceeding. That should be the end of the matter, but Minister Plibersek has entertained whispers in her ear from a dissident local Indigenous group of dubious credentials, which she says are so sensitive she can't repeat, to block this project. She knew exactly what she was doing. She swung a wrecking ball at this project. It's $1 billion of investment. It's 800 local jobs in regional New South Wales. And this is a threat not just to this project, but for any future mining project here in New South Wales and across the central west of our state, where critical minerals and metals projects are so important to our economy for the future. And good on Premier Minns for recognising that and for saying that. And I feel for the local Aboriginal Land Council, who must be thinking, well, what are our views worth in these assessments if Minister Plibersek can ignore our views and listen to whispers in her ear from a different group and block the project on that basis?
Well, the Premier has been strong, but look, he says he's not going to pick up the phone for some reason and try and intervene, should he?
Well, I know that the New South Wales government, they've done their assessment. They did the right thing. They've conducted an assessment over more than 3 years on this project. They sent it to the Independent Planning Commission in our state, which conducts an independent assessment. It was given the tick for approval. The issues that have been raised at the Commonwealth level were raised at the state level, and they were taken into account when the approval was granted. So if any state government should be very concerned that the federal government now has this effective right of veto over any project they wish to develop within their own jurisdictions. And in this case, it's New South Wales, and the New South Wales government has reacted accordingly. But any state government around the country should be very wary of what this leads to. This means that the Commonwealth can block any project that they don't see to be politically consistent with their values, or if they decide that they want to block it for other reasons. So good on the Premier and good on the New South Wales government for standing up for New South Wales. But it's not just a case that you can just tweak this application and put it back into the system and move the tailings dam on the mine plan in some kind of cut and paste exercise. These things happen in the real world in a lot more complicated fashion than that. And the Prime Minister and the Minister should know that.
You make an interesting point there. I mean, what chance do you think this project would have been cancelled if it was, say, a renewable energy project like a wind farm or some solar panels?
Well, if this was a dam rather than a tailings dam, if it was a dam for a pumped hydro project, perhaps the outcome and the minister's discretionary decision would have been different. If this was a minister from regional electorate rather than from an inner city electorate under threat from the Greens, maybe the decision would have been different. But look, in the end, we are where we are. It's a terrible decision. And what makes it worse is the minister's refusal to actually go to the region and front up to the people involved and the communities that have lost these jobs and this investment and explain her decision.
What do you reckon this might have cost the company, Regis?
Well, they've already written down hundreds of millions of dollars in their annual reporting so far. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars and well over 5 years trying to develop this resource. So they did the right thing. They decided they would invest in New South Wales, create those jobs and generate that investment. And I'm sure they are reeling, and others are also thinking, well, why would we bother? Not just in New South Wales, but around the country, when this sort of decision can be imposed at the very last minute after a more than 4 or 5 year extensive assessment process by the state government and others. This project had all its Commonwealth approvals as well, apart from Minister Plibersek's cultural heritage approval too. So, it's a terrible signal for investment in regional New South Wales, and these projects are so important for regional economies and regional communities, and that's why you've seen such a reaction from the locals in that region, and it's a warning sign for any other regional community across the country.
Look, it's just disgraceful. Stephen Galilee, appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on the program tonight.